So I was talking to this guy earlier, yesterday, and the guy was complaining to me about social media. And he said, all these people are on social media. That's all they do is do this. And I'm like, okay, like that's cool. You don't have to have social media. Like that's fine. And so I told him what I chose to do with social media is I go to social media and I post videos, Christian videos on social media. And I told him last week I reached 500,000 people on my social media. So I went into 500,000 people's houses and I preached to them. Only a 2-3 minute sermon. Jesus came to earth to be a servant. So Jesus, it's the highest entity you can get, correct? God. Like you don't get any higher than God, right? So Jesus came down to earth to be a servant, which is about the lowest you can get, correct? We see it as low, but heaven sees it as high. That's our perspective of a servant, correct? We're like, hey, servants are way down here. God's like, no. So I'm not bashing anybody, but when you see people doing things and they're not being a servant about it, and they're asking you to serve them, that's not how the gospel works. Don't get me wrong, if my pastor asks me to do something, I'm probably going to do it 100%. But a pastor is there to serve his congregation. A pastor isn't there to be served. That's not the Bible. That's not what the Bible teaches. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying here. When is the last time you thanked God for the trials that you've gone through? Well, we thank God, correct? For the stuff that we go through. So we're talking about entitlement, and that's the opposite side of entitlement. Because entitlement doesn't think you should go through anything. That's the entitlement attitude. No, I'm better than everybody. I shouldn't go through anything. No, everybody goes through everything. So when those trials come at you, what does the Bible say we're supposed to do? Pray about them and count them as joy. Not to push it away and be like, why is this coming to me again? No, it's life. Trials don't stop. I don't know if you guys know that. No, I want to tell you guys one more thing. I'm not special, and neither are one of you guys special, that trials are going to stop. We're not that special. Sorry. God's not going to just stop stuff because, don't put that guy through trials anymore. He's good. That's how we build our character. And we learn from it. Right, exactly. So entitlement is the belief that I deserve what only God has the right to give. Again, entitlement is the belief that I deserve only what God has the right to give. One of the main things that we battle when we battle entitlement is, and then the root of entitlement is pride. That's basically one of the big roots. In Proverbs 16:18, it says, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. So pride, again, was the original sin as well. So in Isaiah 14:13 and 14, it said, I will ascend and make myself like the Most High. Who did that? I will ascend and make myself like the Most High. Satan did that. Isaiah 14:13 and 14. So that's paraphrasing it right there. So entitlement begins when creation believes it deserves the position of the creator. You're never better than your creator. So another thing that happens is we forget grace. So entitlement grows when people forget that everything is a gift. And we just talked about that. Life is a gift. We don't deserve to take another breath. God gives us another breath. So in 1 Corinthians 4:7, it says, what do you have that you did not receive? Nothing. What did I come in with this world with? What am I going to leave with? What do I have? I received everything that I have. So basically, life is a gift, salvation is a gift, and the ability is a gift, and breath is a gift. These are all gifts that we get from God. We're not entitled to any of these. Entitlement says, I earned this. Grace says, I received this. That's two different mind frames again. Comparison with others, that's another root of entitlement. When I compare myself with others, first of all, it's silliness. It's ridiculousness, first of all. Why am I going to compare myself with another human being? Like, we're not all at even playing fields, right? I've gone through something different than you. My purpose in life is different than your purpose, We all have a different, excuse me, we all have a different purpose, but our main purpose is to praise the Creator, right? But God has given us all a different purpose in life, and that's in honoring Him as well. So entitlement often appears when we measure ourselves against people instead of God. Jesus addressed this directly in the parable of the workers. The workers hired early felt cheated when the late workers received the same wage. Do you guys know that parable? So the parable goes like this. The guy that owns the farm, he goes out on the early morning, and he's like, hey, you want to work a 12-hour shift? And he gets people to work a 12-hour shift. They work. He goes on later in the day. Hey, you want to work an 8-hour shift? All you guys work an 8-hour shift. Let's go. He goes up 4 hours. Hey, you guys want to work a 4-hour shift? Yeah. All right, let's. I'm going to pay you this much. And everyone he told, he's going to pay him the same exact amount. He didn't cheat anybody out of anything. He promised what he was going to pay, and he paid them. He goes out the very last hour, and he gets someone. Hey, you want to? Oh, right. So the people that think that they work 12 hours think they should get more than the people that worked 1 hour. Why? Because it's entitlement. Why am I going to get mad at the owner's generosity? That's not my money. He told me he's going to give me so much money for working this time, and that's what he did. Right? Why are we going to get mad at his generosity? Because somebody else gets blessed, I'm going to get mad? That's kind of silliness, right? Their issue wasn't injustice, it was entitlement. The landowners replied, are you envious because I'm generous? So entitlement cannot tolerate grace given to others. Another reason is we have a transactional view of God. If I obey God, He owes me this. No, that's not how any of this works. We want to think that. When you obey God, you live life the way it should be lived. That's your gift. I didn't obey God a lot of my life, and I lived life the other way. That was my consequence for my actions. I battled with drugs and alcohol for 20 years of my life. I've been sober 5 years right now. Does God owe me anything because I've been sober 5 years? No. He owes me nothing at all. I started living life when I was born again. That's when you start living life. I know a lot of people say, I gave my life to Jesus. You didn't have a life to give. You were dead in your trespasses, in your transgressions. You didn't have that life. God gave you that life. So don't pretend, yeah, I did something. No, God came and rescued you. You were drowning in the bottom of the pool with no help, and He came and rescued you because He loves you. Luke 17:10 says, when you have done all, we say, we are unworthy servants, we have only done our duty. When we've done all that we've asked to do on this earth, we go to God and we say, I'm an unworthy servant, I've only done my duty. But I'm going to tell you guys one more time, in doing your duty, that's when you live. When you're doing your purpose in God's plan, that's when you start living. Again, your life starts when you're born again. But we could still be born again and not have the communion with God like we should. Sin doesn't separate us from God, but it does hinder the relationship. Because when God says, you're born again, you're sealed, you're going to heaven, when he puts the Holy Spirit in you, that's a fail-safe. Let me explain this fail-safe. Nothing you can do can separate you from God. You're going to heaven. That's his fail-safe. When he puts his Holy Spirit in you, there's nothing you can do. You can try to do stuff. You could try to run from him, but the Holy Spirit is in you now. You can't go over the edge. There's a fail-safe. You can't act extra stupid because first of all, God saved you in the first place. And if God saved you, then he's going to keep you. You're not going to keep yourself. God's going to keep us. So obedience never puts God in debt to us. We obey because we love God. And a lot of times we obey because we know the consequences for our actions. I'll say that for myself. I know the consequences for drugs and alcohol. I lived 20 horrible years of life in that addiction. I can still choose to go back there. That's my choice. I have free will to do that. But that's not living. That's separation from God. Again, God's still in you, but if I choose to do that, that's going to hinder my relationship with God. That's going to grieve the Holy Spirit. So another thing is loss of humility about sin. So entitlement forgets our true condition apart from God. Romans 3:23 says all have sinned and fallen short. When people lose awareness of mercy received, entitlement replaces gratitude. Again, entitlement replaces gratitude. Why should we be grateful? Because we woke up today. What more do you want? Not everybody woke up today. God chose to keep you alive another day. So the biggest root is entitlement is the humanity wanting blessing without dependency. One more time. Entitlement is humanity wanting blessing without dependency. God bless me, but I don't need to depend on you. No, we're dependent on God on our good days and our bad days. I know a lot of it's easy to stray from God on our good days, right? We're like, yeah, I'm doing good. I've been doing good for this long. You still need God just as more as when you weren't doing good. There's no difference. Sin is sin, and sin separates us from God. God's standard is perfection. And there was only one perfect man. And that's where we find our perfection. Not in what I do, but in what he did. So if you guys remember Genesis 3:5, when the devil tempts him, he says, you will be like God for Adam and Eve. So entitlement says, I deserve authority, I deserve recognition, I deserve comfort, and I deserve an award. We don't deserve anything. Again, I'll tell you guys one more time. When we're living the way we should be living for God, that's living life the way it should be living. That's heaven on earth. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but heaven starts when you're born again. That's when heaven starts. Where I am, you will be there as well. Christ is now living in us. The Holy Spirit is now living in us. That is heaven on earth. I know it doesn't feel like it all the time, but we're human.